Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Listen, I'm glad to have you guys here on this Monday, the 8th of February, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Now, listen, at the end of this show, I'm going to go through the markets this morning, talk about silver and gold and things, and then when the show ends toward the end, now remember I told you guys how we're heading toward a big crisis next year, 2022. And that crisis is going to be a hyperinflationary depression. It's going to be tremendous. Never seen anything like it for gold, silver, and cryptos. Those are the only things that's going to hold your purchasing power. And I think they're going to do more than hold your purchasing power. I think they're going to hold your purchasing power plus. So I think they're going to move up in their value against the fiat currencies, not just holding your purchasing power, but plus. And that plus could be multiples, especially when it's compared to real estate. Because I don't think that real estate is one of the things. Now, see, a lot of things are gonna jump up in price tremendously. Things people have to buy. Things like food. Tremendous increases in price. But real estate, I don't think is going to, and your wages, I don't think your wages are going to keep up with inflation. I don't think real estate's going to keep up with inflation. Maybe certain areas of farmland might, right? But your typical real estate out there, you know, we're looking at tremendous hard times coming with a hyperinflationary depression, and that's what we're headed toward in 2022. And in fact, it might get so bad. There's an entire possibility it might get so bad that there's certain areas of the country that you have to escape from. And that's what I'm going to talk about later in the show. Is the plans that people need to make. You know, now I was telling you guys for several years how to put a closet away and fill it with food and everything else. The plan might be a little bit different, what you have to do with this hyperinflationary depression. But let's get started. Let's get right in there, and let's open up the charts right here and take a look at this. It says, even scientists' models now forecast that the COVID scourge is ending by the summer. Well, that's good news, guys. I mean, we all can need a break from this. This has been this has been tough, you know. But we see the numbers going down big time, you know, and this is, and we got everything looks on track for this economic recovery. But it's not going to be, it's not like we're going to suddenly go back to the way things were. We got systemic problems within the economy, job losses and everything else. And that's going to be slow to return. And so we're looking at the problems of like 30 million or more Americans who are out of work right now. And they got problems, huge systemic problems in the United States, you know. But I think we've hit our lowest point. Our lowest point was like January, and this month is our lowest, I think our lowest point, you know, in the COVID crisis. But now we're going to have the hyperinflationary crisis coming up in 2022. Now let's take a look at silver today. We see silver is at 27.48. It's up 75 cents. It's looking really good for silver there. But this price is no way reflective upon the actual physical metal. There's long-term problems coming here for the physical metal because they need it in industry big time, you know. And I just don't see where there's enough to go around to cover huge bar and coin demand and to fulfill industry, the promises to industry from these mines without a higher price. The miners will start to increase production if they push that price up higher, you know, but it takes them a little while to gear up. Just like anything, I mean, you just can't say, okay, more from the mines now. You know, they have machinery and equipment, and they have to hire new people and everything, and they have to open up sections of the mines, you know, and then it takes a few months before that silver actually starts to make its way into the market. And all of that whole process generally takes, there's a lag there, probably at least 9 months, probably more, like about even 24 months before you actually start to see silver production increase. And there's another problem. They've mined out all the best grade ore. So what we're looking at is the silver miners probably needing a substantially higher price than what we're seeing in reflected in the spot price right now for their silver. Okay, let's take a look now at the gold price today. Gold prices went up $20.20 to $1835.40. So gold's doing rather well too today. We're having a plus day for gold and silver. Let's take a look at cryptos. Cryptos is really doing good today. It's almost one. Look, I'm going to tell you guys. 2009, crypto started. And it took it all the way up to 2021 before it made its first trillion. Now, we're a third of the way through that second trillion. Just that quick. How long is it going to take it to get through its second trillion? Well, if it took it like 11 years or something to make it through the first trillion, the second trillion might take less than a year. How long for the third trillion? Oh, I don't know, maybe a month. The fourth trillion? A week. The fifth trillion? You know, a few days. There's no upper price limit for Bitcoin. You need to figure that out, and with everything that you're thinking about, that there's no upper price limit for it, until it's absorbed all the value of the world. It's the perfect thing to absorb, and if the central banks can't stop it, and you know, I mean, they put out this big statement there, the central banks, that you could lose all your money if you invest in Bitcoin. Well, that would mean Bitcoin would have to go to zero. Zero. Z-E-R-O. And how could Bitcoin go to zero? Well, there's only one way Bitcoin could go to zero. And that's with a 51% attack. So I listened to their statement there, and I took it seriously, because these central banks, when they make a statement, generally it's pre-planned. They know exactly what they're saying. They may read it from a teleprompter or whatever, but they know exactly what they're saying. Okay, so I read their statement. And I say to myself, hey, you know what? Is this a rash statement? No, let's think about this. Could Bitcoin go to zero? Yeah, 51% attack could take it to zero. That's the first thing I thought of. And I said, well, I mean, could they do that? And then I went and I checked. I looked on the internet and I find out how much power does Bitcoin consume. Oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe how much power it consumes, you know. So then I kind of figured, what would 51% of that amount of power be? Well, it'd be roughly about the same amount of power that the state of Georgia uses, including Atlanta, you know, Atlanta, Georgia. It would be a lot of power. I said to myself, well, could they do that? Because, you know, they would only need to run it for a few seconds to absolutely and utterly destroy the Bitcoin, you know, the 51% attack. And I said, well, could they run the power of the state of Georgia? And then I said to myself, well, then they'd need all the mining machines too. Well, how where would they put all those? Well, they'd need warehouses. They would need a network, you know. They would need, it's just beyond measure. They would have to, it would cost billions, it probably cost $100 billion just to do it. I said, no, it's not feasible. That's what I said to myself. It's not really feasible that they could do a 51% attack. Well, that would mean then that the statement that they made, either they're very ill-informed, and I don't think they are, or they're trying to intimidate. And I said to myself, well, if they're trying to intimidate us by making a rash statement like that, why? What's their motive? Well, I got thinking about it, and I said, well, probably fear. They're scared. The central banks are scared. That's why they made this rash statement that you lose all your money, that Bitcoin go to zero. Because to lose all your money, Bitcoin have to go to zero. Even if Bitcoin was $1, you wouldn't have lost all your money. You know, so they're. My conclusion is that that statement. See, if they try to shut Bitcoin down, they make it illegal. They make it illegal in the United States. It's everywhere on Earth. They ain't gonna stop it. That'll slow it down. It might knock the price down a lot. They ain't gonna stop it. No, it ain't gonna stop it. It might set it back by 6 months or 8 months in what Bitcoin's trying to achieve, which is total world domination of all the money. So we're in a situation here, you know, where if the central banks print more, Bitcoin will go up higher. Bitcoin's going to absorb what they print. And in the end, this effect will get worse and worse. We've got a monetary black hole here in the cryptos. And I see the central banks now. I think my personal opinion is they are scared. They're really scared of this. I don't think they're scared of gold and silver. They're scared of this. All these cryptocurrencies, look at them. There's hundreds of different ones. They're all ready to take the place of the fiat monetary system. And the central banks, I don't think they know what to do about it. And this is a decentralized system, and they've had that centralized control for so long. And they see this as a huge threat, but they don't really know what to do about it. Even clamping down on it, it might even make it worse for them, you know. I'll tell you, it's a situation here. Let's take a look at the Dow today. 131 points up, 31,279 for the Dow Jones today. And we see the price going up. This is going to continue if they keep pumping the money out there. The market doesn't care, guys. It doesn't care. It only sees that new fresh money. It doesn't care about all these guys out there. You got all these guys out there, a whole swarm of them out there who's saying, okay, the market's going to fall by 80%. It's overpriced. We're going into a depression. Save your dollars. They're telling you to save something that they can print in endless quantities. And they got Bitcoin on the other side of that. But they got to keep printing or the whole system's going to fail. So they're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Let's take a look now at crude oil, 57.83 today for crude oil. And crude oil and all these commodities are all catching a good bid. Move index today, looking at 47.20 on the move index. And the move index, we keep our eye on it only for one reason. This is the credit markets. And if the move index goes too high, the credit markets are running into a problem. Credit market volatility, you know. So it's staying along fairly level right now. Nothing to be concerned about. Bond market, we're looking at the long end of the yield curve falling. Falling yields on the long end and rising yields on the short end, but it's not real big today, you know. We're looking at 1.15 on the U.S. 10-year, and the U.S. 30-year is, what's that, 1.94 it looks like? Yeah. Now we're going to take a look at the U.S. dollar index. Dollar is going along fairly sideways today. It's down a little bit. It's 90.98. And now we're going to check out, well, that's the works of the market report. So now what we're going to do is turn the charts off, and we're going to talk right now about this crisis that's coming in 2022. It's going to be a hyperinflationary type crisis. It might not come until 2023, to tell you the truth, because it's hard to put timing on this, you know. I'll tell you how my timing is kind of working on this. Say you go to the fair, you know, and you got one of those, they got these games where you toss the rings over the thing. The guy's standing there with the ring, and he's thinking, how hard should I throw this to try to slip that ring over top of the thing, you know, to get the big plush toy, you know. And he's judging. He's sitting there judging. How hard do I throw it? He's not going to throw it real hard. It would go way past where he's trying to hit, you know. And he's not going to throw it too easy, because if he throws it too easy, it just falls short. He'll never get the plush toy. I'm like that guy. I'm trying to judge here. When's that hyperinflation going to come? Looking at the general economy, taking in about 30 different factors and trying to figure out how hard to toss that ring and where I think it's going to fall. And it's difficult to know exactly, but we're so close to it now. It's a little bit easier where I can kind of get an idea when are people going to lose confidence in the purchasing power. Well, they're already starting to lose confidence. We're seeing it in the cryptocurrencies. We're seeing it in gold and silver, right? And this is going to continue. So how much longer can we go before people start to say, hey, you know, I'm getting rid of my dollars because they're losing value too fast. And they start to spend their money as fast as they get it. Because that's what really causes hyperinflation. I figure once the economy improves, it's going to increase the speed of this. And I figure probably in 2022, maybe 2023 at the latest. And it might come sooner. It might come this year. It's a little bit hard to figure this thing, but we're so close to it now. It's like trying to predict when a volcano is going to blow up. Okay. Now that I've established that, when it hits, it's going to be ferocious. And we could have areas where trouble breaks out. What I mean by trouble is I mean civil unrest. Large areas where civil unrest breaks out. And the power grid could go down in those areas. Emergency services could go down in those areas. In large areas. We're talking about areas maybe the size of a whole state. And then craziness could break out. You know, I mean, vandalism, you name it. Right? And so, the way I'm thinking now is I'm thinking the best plan is actually probably to have some sort of a bug out plan. Now, I'm thinking to myself, hey, you know, the bug out on foot, what are you going to do? Put a backpack on your back. Are you going to put a quart of water in there, and a little tent or something, and head off walking? Well, that's just, in my mind, that just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. Say you're in an area the size of, maybe you'd have to escape an area like that. You might have to drive 200 miles. Or get 200 miles away. Well, if you're trying to walk and you got a quart of water, you know, and that's it, and a couple sandwiches and a backpack or whatever, and you got to go 200 miles to get out of that area, you just ain't going to make it. Because that's, even if you walk 20 miles a day, it'd take you, what, 10 days, and you're going to run out of food and water and everything else. No, the way to go is a vehicle, you know. And because you can sleep inside a vehicle, I'm going to tell you what, there might be a time coming in North America here where the man who's homeless is only homeless if he doesn't have a vehicle. And the person that has a vehicle is not homeless. They got a vehicle. That's their home. Just like a turtle has his shell, you know. And you're a heck of a lot better off if you've got a vehicle to sleep in at night rather than sleeping on the ground, on the hard cement or whatever. You know, you're way, way, way better off. And I know an awful lot of people out there are used to having a big luxury home, you know, and everything, you know. They're not used to actually sleeping in a vehicle. But, you know, in a pinch, you know, it's a lot better than sleeping on the ground. You're not exposed to the weather or the environment and anything. Most cars have a heater in them, you know, and everything. It's probably best to make your bug out plan using your vehicle, I would think. In my mind, that just makes sense. And you can increase your range in your vehicle. Now, what I'm thinking is make a special bug out vehicle. You know, I'm getting to the point now where I got to get another car anyway. My car is just about toast. And I never sell my cars when I'm done with them. You know, I try to get as much out of them as I can and run them into the ground and then take them to the dump, you know, when they're done. But anyway, I was thinking about getting a new car and making a conversion of the car into some sort of a little camper car and adding extra range, so that if an area, say, goes, and I got to get out of Dodge and I got to get out of town and everything, that I have it all ready for myself, you know, I could store 2 months or 3 months of food inside the vehicle and have running water and electricity and from solar conversion. And using a small 4-cylinder is what I'm thinking to myself for extended range, and carry a little trailer on back where I could carry a reserve tank, you know, and put a little tow hitch on it, a vehicle. And I was thinking to myself, you could get the range up so you could escape, even if you have to get 1,000 miles away to try to escape whatever. Because this situation that we're headed toward, you know, might actually require you to bug out. It might get so bad in your area that you might have to escape an area. You know, that's a consideration that's come to my mind, as the system might undergo partial shutdowns in certain areas. Because we've got a problem with the money. An enormous problem with the money. And money runs everything out there. And if you take your money and it becomes valueless, that's a big problem with the money. If the money becomes valueless very quickly, within a matter of months, just 2 or 3 months, it could go from hero to zero, you know, your money. That's a big problem, and it could cause massive disruption in large areas, large swaths of the country, you know. We don't exactly know what to expect yet, but we know that we're not talking 10 years from now or anything. We're talking this chaos probably coming within the next 2 or 3 years. And so you got to start thinking about something called strategic location. The area you're in right now, you might want to look on Google Maps, and you say, well, Glenn, what are you looking for? Well, what you can do is you can zoom down in on an area from Google Maps, and you can change it from the regular map format where it's like white screen and, you know, roads and everything, to an actual photograph. And you look on Google Maps, and you can check in your area for water sources. You can check in your area where your position to other homes in the area if you're out in a rural location. And even if you're in a more of an urban location, you can actually take a look at your escape routes, what highways you would have to use to try to get out of an urban area. There's a lot you can find out from Google Maps of your particular location. And it's like scouting, you know, it's like advanced scouting of what you might have to do in your personal situation to try to mitigate some sort of a total disaster. And that's what this would be. If the money goes to zero, it's going to be a disaster. Because there's just too many people that are in this money. And yeah, okay, maybe you got a new rich people. Maybe people who have these alternative asset classes are suddenly rich. But what about all the others, all the people that own companies and everything else? If the money dissolves to zero, what happens? Well, we have to look in places like Weimar, Germany to find out what happens. We have to look in places like Zimbabwe, places like a great example is what happened in the collapse and fall of the former Soviet Union. That's an absolutely stunning example of what Moscow was like during the fall of the former Soviet Union. Criminal gangs roam the streets, and organized crime picked up as a huge uptick in a situation like this. The same thing happened in Venezuela, you know, but in this case, we'd be looking at a country that has it's not a, it's very much a very dire type of a situation, you know. When you get this kind of a Venezuela type situation in the United States would be compounded much more than what it was in Venezuela. So what happened in Venezuela, you know? Well, the average person lost at least 20 or 30 pounds. What does that tell you? They didn't lose that weight voluntarily. So I would say to people out there, you know, who are facing this kind of a situation, is if you're a few pounds overweight, maybe you've been a few pounds overweight all your life, like me, I'm 20 pounds overweight, you know. I've been 20 pounds overweight most of my life, except for a period in my 30s when I got more than 20 pounds overweight. I got to be a fairly big boy, chunky boy in my 30s, you know. But most of my life I've been about 20 pounds overweight. Embrace that fat. I know the North American way of thinking is, hey, you know, we're fat, we got to lose weight, we got to get in shape, and all this over and over and again. You hear this mantra, you know. It's time to embrace your fat, because you might darn well need it. Your body stores fat for reserves. It's like reserve tank on your car, you know, reserve fuel tank on your car. You might need a reserve fuel tank in your car in this situation. And you might need that fat that's on your body in this situation that's coming up. Anyway, listen, hard times we got to deal with. I'll probably talk about this more, maybe add more details and stuff to it later. But thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget the notification bell. And we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.